Africa seems to be a continent that is so diverse in terms of our colonization to begin with, because we get our identities, unfortunately, from the countries that colonized us. So when you find that, the composition of Africa now is now made up of countries that are brought together because of their identities, which is you have Francophone countries, you have Lusophone countries, which is something I found out just the other day.
Yeah,
the word Lusophone, yes. You have
Portuguese speaking.
You have Anglophone,
and Arabophone.
You have Arabophone countries,
yes.
and over and above just the organization around the languages that we were colonized under. There is also the regional economic blocks that also play a big factor. You have the SADC, you have East Africa Community, you have so many of these regions coming together, and they all have, the regions usually have, you have COMESA, the regions usually have a common uniting agenda, such that when you're campaigning, you're not campaigning, I think Kenyans were so used to it's either the tribal factor kind of politics, where you tell yourself that if I bring together the Kambas plus the Luos and half of the Luyas, and then I go and grab a bit of the coastal region, then I am guaranteed of maybe a win. It's not as easy as it wasn't as easy as people thought it was gonna be. People close to Raila have always adopted when elections are coming. Yeah. Sometimes I always say that there are certain competitions where if you show you're too eager, if you show your might too much, if you play your cards too out there in the open, people begin to question and ask themselves, are you really in it because you want to be the AUC chair? Is there a bigger agenda that we are not seeing? Because, for instance, I would tell you that, first of all, even just the national conversations, even way before these elections took place, there was the whole conversation about Raila's MPs coming up and saying, Addis ni hapa tu. He will be in Addis, and Addis is just 15 minutes away from Nairobi. Yeah. He can still play a part in the Kenyan politics,
and he'll be president of Africa,
and he will be the president of Africa. So there was there was a bit of that, but also I think it's also Kenyan nature. It's within our nature. Let's accept it, Jeff. Tuko hivyo tunakwanga watu roho juu sana. Yeah, we are so, when our approach to things is that we are very loud, we are very out there. And in fact, yesterday I was analyzing this with a friend who is a very good friend of mine in ODM. Yeah, she's the founder of Daughters of Raila, which I was a member of, a secretary general back then. And we discussed this, and I asked her, why did we lose? Why did Baba lose? And she told me that Kenya does not have a very good name out there. And it's not because we are bad people. People think of us as being, this was her exact answer, that there was an election going on at the Pan-African level, and Kenya had presented a candidate. And when they were campaigning, she told me someone from Morocco just came and told her, you know what, you guys are not going to win. And she asked why. She was told, you people are too loud and obnoxious. So at the African center stage, we are not liked, we are not liked, and it's nothing.
Do they fear us?
I think it's also a question of being intimidated. When you're too loud, and personally, even from a personal level, it's a problem I have faced.
You're very loud.
I'm around, not loud.
So for me, I think it's normally, even in human interactions, the person who comes out in a crowd as the loudest sometimes is perceived as being proud, as being arrogant, when sometimes it's just a personality. You're just bold, it's who you are, and it's who we are as Kenya, and I think I even like the approach that the Raila's team and even just people who are campaigning for him have taken, that we have lost, but we are okay, we've lost and we are good.
No, they're not okay.
They seem to be saying so.
We did the same thing with Amina Mohammed,
who
was the best candidate, and we campaigned really well for her, and I think in the end she lost by 2 votes or something.
But
she was the ideal candidate.
Uhuru put up a very good campaign,
and we lost.
Amina, in my opinion, was probably even a better, candidate as compared to Raila in very many aspects. Number one, the diplomatic angle. Remember, she had served, she had been a diplomat for some time.
Correct.
She was the Minister for Foreign Affairs at some point?
Correct.
She had served as the Minister for Foreign Affairs. And then also second, in terms of, it's something that comes up and people look at it from a negative point of view, but it's the reality. Age also was a factor. Because the thing is, when you're the AUC chair, you are the president of presidents. That's the reality. You are the you're the uniting factor amongst presidents, and you know how the generation that is younger than anyone, not necessarily Gen Zs, but anybody younger than anyone older, tends to feel that if an older person is leading me, then there will be that whole power dynamics of, you know, you're telling me what to do as opposed to us being on the same level of conversation. So sometimes when they're voting, they also tend to look at these things, you know. This person, they're coming, they're 80 years, and we have a younger candidate who's about 60, and the medium age for presidents in Africa is technically around 60. And then also, once again, I think global politics also plays a role in this, in as much as we would want to, wish away the fact that African business, other countries are very interested. The West is very interested in Africa. The East is very interested in Africa, you know, because of the geographical position of Africa, the fact that we have resources that they need to grow their economies. So therefore, do not be surprised if chini ya maji, these are some of the things they never really tell you, but chini ya maji, do not be surprised if the West and the East also have a hand to play in it. Yeah, I was actually hopeful that he would get it. I mean, if you look at the agenda that he had laid down, he was talking about the fact that he wanted to allow free movement within African countries, which is something that is very, very positive. He was addressing the question of trade, the economic development and growth of the continent, the unity of Africa. And in my opinion, Raila as a person and what he represents, and even the history that he represents, would have been good for Africa. I mean, if he won, it would have been a uniting thing for Africa. But then along the way, it's just that sometimes you look at your journey, if you're in a race, and you're like, tuambiane tu ukweli, hii strategy is not making sense. First of all, I don't think the Kenyan diplomatic composition of Kenyan diplomats is as strong, to compare to the previous regime, is not as strong as the previous regime. During Uhuru's time, we had very educated, very informed, very well-informed people who were holding diplomatic positions, who could very easily relate with other people. And I'm not trying to say that the people who are there today are not that good, but the point is that our diplomatic front was not well covered, because the thing is, this thing was, you were campaigning based on the relationships we have with other countries. So our diplomats were the ones who should have been at the forefront of campaigning for Raila. We didn't need to see all these razzmatazz and all these people from nowhere who had nothing to do with AU being there, you know. Even on the day of the voting, I think that was a very big misstep, carrying an entire delegation of 1,000 people. In fact, some of my friends at the office, my boss kept asking me, why are you not at Addis? You know, I would have given you permission to go. And in my mind, I'm saying, you know, why did you carry all these people? Because sometimes I say, the way you show up to a contest, you know, there are people who usually come in and they look like they are the lesser evil. They look like they are the less intimidating candidate, the one that will not, the underdogs. In elections, the underdogs always win, you know. So sometimes when you come in too strong, when you display, when you come in with a big display of a delegation, you're showing, or rather you're creating the impression that people would even ask themselves, nyinyi watu mkoshua hii kitu, hakuna agenda ingine iko chini ya maji, you know. So I think that display, we got it wrong on the diplomatic front, the people who are campaigning. We got it wrong on our optics on the day of elections. We also, in my opinion, were not negotiating correctly. You know, you cannot just tell people, you can't just have your campaign platforms as we are going to open free movement within African countries. Some of these campaign strategies, you have to understand what kind of election are you getting into. This is not a national election where you will tell people, nitawapatia kila mtu 6,000 at the end of the month and everybody claps for you. You have to come down to what does every country need in terms of what is their biggest concern. For instance, landlocked countries. One of the things that Raila would have probably done is promise the landlocked countries that, you know, because Kenya has access to the port, you people can use our port, things like that. What is your bargaining chip to every country? How do you reassure for example, the Islamic countries, how do you reassure them that, you know what, you people are a respecter of religion and things like that, you know? What is your position on also what is happening around Africa? We took a very bold stance, in my opinion, on the question of DRC, which could have also affected the chances of Raila, because I mean the other African countries are like, everybody else has chilled. Everybody else is focusing on their business. Why do you people want to always play the big brother card? I think sometimes our eagerness to always, especially with, sorry, but especially, I don't know why I'm apologizing, na sio mimi nimekata internet, especially with Ruto's approach to African issues when he got into power. The first thing he did when he got into power is he presented an image of a pan-Africanist. You remember those very terrific speeches he used to make during AU meetings, you know, and in other African countries, and he posed as if he was going to be the next this pan-Africanist. He was posing like
Lumumba,
he was going to be the next Lumumba, you know. He was posing like he was the next Nelson Mandela.
He was wearing counter suits.
He was evil. He even started wearing counter suits, and people were like, now this is the African, you know, president. I mean, this is the person we are looking to for direction. I think also it is important to know that this Raila's loss is, sorry to say, a big loss to the president as well, because I feel like nationally he was also banking on Raila going, and many of us, I mean, even in DAP, I will be honest to tell you that we were hoping that he would get the seat, because to be honest, Raila being in AU, in as much as his members of parliament would say, oh, AU ni hapa tu, unaingia tu barabara ya del whatever, ukiingia Isiolo na umefika Nairobi. In as much as they were saying it, he was still going to have a hand in the local politics. The truth of the matter is, him being at the AU would have locked him there, because
his plate would have been full. Exactly,
because also one of the expectations of an AUC chair is to be, how do I put it, autonomous and to be independent and to not find yourself being thrown into African affairs. Because even the former AUC chairs, if you noticed, anytime something is happening, something crazy is happening in Africa, they don't really make noise about it. They will say, we have taken note, we advise. They don't jump into it and make it their business. It's, you're meant to be a uniting figure, and even if something is happening in your country, you need to stay away from it, focus on your position. So I think the president was banking on Raila going to AU so that the local politics would be left as an open play field. And I think it's also something that even the opposition, people who are now in opposition, the Kalonzos, my party leader, they were praying that he would go, because it would have changed the political dynamics.
So what does he do when he comes back now?
So him coming back means, one, I always say Raila is a very smart politician. I have been privileged to work under him and maybe campaign for him, and you know, just be there to support his bid and ambition. And I've been very close to the family as well. Mama Ida is a good friend of mine. I worked for her. She's a very close friend of mine, and I know how, I don't know, I cannot be an expert on how Raila thinks, but patterns speak for themselves. He seems to be a seasonal politician. Raila seems to be a seasonal politician. Ni politician wasahi. Like, I am playing the politics of Monday today. Ninacheza politics ya Valentine's, na Valentine's kiisha, kesho ni politics ya the next day. You get? So meaning, right now, it might look like, and maybe this is a warning to the people in UDA who think they now have Raila on their side. I can almost tell you with certainty, and I'm also good at making political predictions. In 2027, Raila will be out of this bread-based thing. He will be out. Because it will not, he will not be part of government no more, because he's a smart politician and he knows that if your popularity is dwindling, why should I jump on a vehicle that is falling apart?
Is he going to stand?
He might not vie. That is a 50-50 thing. That's his personal decision. But in terms of national politics, he will do his calculations and realize, number one, which is the reality, that most of Ruto's people are not coming back to office. So why would I back a horse that is already dying, you know? Then if Ruto's people are not coming back to office, most of them, almost maybe 70% of them are not coming back to office, why would I bring my party to this equation? Because Kenyans will vote in one mindset. Kama tunasema, for example, if they are saying Kasongo and these people are going, and anybody who is associated with him ataingia ndani ya hiyo mix. So Raila is a smart person enough to know that if 2027 comes and it looks like Ruto's things are not looking good, he will not bring ODM into the mix and risk losing positions in parliament. Because what happens is, remember, Raila's zones also have other political parties. Raila's zones are Western, it's Luo Nyanza, it's the coast, it's Kalonzo side, you know, Nairobi. The Kambas and Nairobi, yeah. So in Ukambani, Kalonzo has his party rooted there. In Western right now, I can tell you for sure, with the exit of ANC and the exit of what is it? Ford Kenya is going to exit very soon.
No, you don't know that.
I'm telling you, they will fold.
Papa Roma amekata.
But do you know Kasongo? Unajua Kasongo kweli ama unamsikianga tu?
Na hiyo ni assignment ya kwanza.
Sasa
Raila akirudi
nakwambia Roma will fold. Papa wa Roma will fold. It is either he folds or he loses his seat. That is it. And right now for Papa wa Roma, if he loses his seat, what is he going back to? Nothing. And you know, in the Western politics, if you're not ahead of something, forget, you can never be influential unless you're a Tuoli. You know, you can never be influential. So the thing is this, Papa wa Roma will fold. And once he folds, and it's not even about once he folds, because even with the exit of ANC, the thing is, the 5th largest party right now in the country is DAP. It might look like it's a very small party, but according to the... It looks like a fertilizer party. It truly is a Mbolea party. By the way, it is a Mbolea party, DAP. We are very proud of that name. We are the fertilizer that is the bedrock of Kenyans' growth, yeah? Sounds like a small party, but according to the IEBC statistics after the 2020...
biggest.
It's the 5th largest party, and it is not even after ANC. No, it is the largest party now is UDA, ODM, then Wiper, then Jubilee, and then
DAP.
Yes.
Yes. Will come
Higher. You better believe. So now, with this, and allow me to land this conversation.
Okay.
So now you have, after DAP, then that's when you have Sijukina, ANC, and Ford Kenya. With them going away, what is the only other party left in Western? DAP. So meaning, in terms of growth, even some of the MPs that Raila has in the past had with ODM in Western, chances are the Luyas will get to a point where, sorry to talk about tribal politics, but that is what it is right now. The people will always come back to their cocoons and ask themselves, as Luyas, what is our party? Because the Luos have ODM, the Kalenjins have UDA, the Luyas, the Kambas have Wiper. Watu wa Mombasa wako na PA, na wa Murima wanakuja na Murima party yao is coming very soon, you know. The Luyas will ask themselves, what is our vehicle? Not necessarily for tribal politics, but for bargaining. And they will land with DAP. Now you'll find Raila's MPs in Western, because he actually got quite a number. I was part of the management of the elections in Vihiga. He got a great percentage of MPs in Western. So now they will come and say, we are now joining DAP. Now Raila loses some of those people. Yeah. So the dynamics in 2027 will change. So Raila will not want to find himself in a position where he's backing a dying horse and he's losing MPs even in areas that he already had MPs. And therefore, as a result, of course, when you lose MPs, your party dies. Yeah.
People were not happy with Raila.
Yeah.
Especially post the maandamanos.
Of course.
Gen Zs.
Yeah. Especially young people.
Most of them felt like he betrayed them.
Yeah.
Sindio,
that's true.
Government.
Yeah.
So when you say that he's not going to be flogging a dead horse, he's not going to be part of a government that is losing popularity among the citizenry, do you mean that Raila will have to come back to the people and tell them, I might have disappointed you, but now I've made an about turn, I'm gonna be for you?
The only way to gain back the confidence and the trust of the people will be to be against what the people are against. Maybe for him, on a personal level, it was a very good decision, because these political moves, we have to be honest with ourselves, these political moves are usually very financial in nature. You don't just join, unaangalia kwanza economic, financial, Ministry of, finance. You have to focus first of all on your finance. Before you make such a big unpopular move, there must be a lot of money on the table for you to say, now, you know what, I'm joining this unpopular, because honestly, what was that move? In the middle of what people would call a revolution, you are joining the person people are revolting against. That was a very miscalculated move, especially from someone that has had a history of fighting for the rights of Kenyans. And I don't think in a period of over 20 years plus had we had such a magnanimous moment of change when people expected him to remain true to what he has always stood for all these years. You know, if Raila had said, look, even like the young people told him, we don't even want you, you've taught us, give us, if he just listened and said, you know what, let me watch you cook. You know, they say, don't aid your enemy on their path of destruction. Never at your enemy is falling and then you are there, you're going to help them. Kama wanakufa, kufa dereva, kufa makaka, you watch from a distance. If he had just maintained that stance of, I'm going to watch from a distance. After all, 2023, I led my own mandamanos and people died. And now, let these young people do it, as they have said, wacha ninyamaze. He would have been at a very advantageous position. And maybe even if he had vied for the AUC chair, having taken that back stance,
maybe he would have won.
Maybe he would have won.